everybody, it's Lon.TV, and we're checking out the Logitech G410 gaming keyboard today. This came in through the Amazon Vine program. Now this is a premium gaming keyboard. This sells for about $130 as you see it. 10 keyless design, meaning it lacks the 10 keys on the right hand side here, so it's a little bit more portable. However, when you pick it up, it really doesn't feel like it's a $130 keyboard. It's not made out of metal like many of these keyboards are. It's made out of very lightweight plastic, and it really doesn't feel like it should cost this much, and I'm actually concerned about its build quality. So the plastic is very cheap feeling and hollow. It almost feels like you can pull it apart over here. You can also see on the back here it's got some of those plastic little stands here that you might find on other inexpensive keyboards. It really doesn't feel like this is going to survive the test of time if you're moving around with it a lot. It is very lightweight as a result, which is a good thing, especially if you are lugging a lot of equipment around with you, but you are going to get something that might be a little bit more brittle than other keyboards are at the same price point. I'm very concerned too about the connection here to the keyboard. This is permanently attached, but this moves around a lot on here, and I'm really concerned about that, as well as the connector to the computer. It's just a standard molded USB cable here, nothing fancy, no heavy duty connector here. And the cable, many of you look for the braided cables. This one is not braided and just kind of a standard USB keyboard cable. So really not all that great on the overall exterior design here. And I've seen some folks complaining also about the weird wrist rest here that doesn't go the whole length of the keyboard. So if you do have another wrist rest you're trying to bring into it, it's not going to fit. So they do have some odd design choices here. The keys themselves, though, do feel pretty nice. These are Romer G keys. These are mechanical switches on these things. I believe this is Logitech's own design. The keys have a nice return to them. They don't travel too far, but they do have a nice mechanical feel. It's not as springy as the Cherry MX switches are on the Corsair keyboards that I've looked at here on the channel. So if you're looking for something a little less springy and something better perhaps to type on, this one certainly does it. And again, I think every gamer's preferences are different. What's funny about the Corsair keyboard is that I love it for gaming. I don't love it for typing. This one I actually kind of like for typing. I really like the way the keys feel on this, but it's not as good for me gaming. I think it just might be what I've gotten used to on that Corsair keyboard. So I think you have to decide if you want springy or you want something more forgiving when you're looking at a keyboard. And that's why maybe going into a store and trying this versus buying it blindly online might be advisable, just because everyone's preferences are a little bit different. But it does feel very nice, and it's funny because the keys do feel heavier than they should on a keyboard this light. So I think they really focused on weight here and made some choices that kind of cheapen the overall design, but I'm glad they kept the keys feeling relatively nice on here. So look, it's okay. It's not bad. So there is a couple other things to point out on here. They are backlit. You can actually go down to the individual key level to configure the lighting. I'll show you that in a minute. You can only do that on Windows though, so there is some Windows software which we'll check out in a minute for changing the lighting. There's a key up here that will disable the Windows key when you push it down, so that's something we've seen on other keyboards. But what you can also do with this key is program it to also disable other keys on a per game basis. So if you are in a game and this Q key does something you don't want it to do, you can disable the Q and you assign that assignment only to that game. So the keyboard will know when that game is loaded. Actually, its software knows, and it will disable the Q while you're inside of that game. If you push the button at the top of the keyboard here, you can push the Q again. So you have the ability to kind of lock out specific keys. That's really the only programmable features of this. There is no macro capability or anything like that. There is also a little stand on here that you can put your mobile phone in, and it doesn't have to be in this thing, but they just kind of offer it as a little stand. And the software that this keyboard comes with has some things that will deliver a second screen kind of experience to the phone. So there are a couple of games, not many, but there are a handful of games that support sending some game data over to your phone or tablet that you can use while you're in the game. They also have some just basic diagnostic information too, so you can actually see your CPU and GPU usage and temperature on your phone while you're playing a game. So it might be kind of neat if you're tweaking your system and want to be able to monitor things as you're in game. It's a nice way to do it. We'll look at that in a second too. All right, I've dimmed the lights a little bit so we can do some keyboard configuration. This is the Windows software. You'll see this when you first pop in. The first option here on the right is to configure the LED lighting. I've got it in the first lighting mode, which is what they call freestyle. So what I could do here, for example, if I wanted to change the color of the S key, I can click on the S. You can see it lit up red here. I can then change the color perhaps. Let me go over to yellow, hit the S again, and it'll download that color there. Unfortunately, you can't configure it in real time. It'd be nice to be able to just kind of turn this dial and have that key change in real time, but you have to set the color shoot it over and see if that's the color you were looking for before you can move on. So you don't have a lot of ability to kind of tweak the color in real time. You have to set it on here, find the color that you're looking for, push it to the key, and then come back and try again if you didn't quite hit what you were looking for. So in this mode, you can kind of go to each key and individually configure the lights on them. I believe you can also turn them off too, so you have some intensity controls as well. So there are some things to relatively easily go through each key and make it do what you want it to do. They also have a neat feature here called zones, so you can set up a zone of keys and then assign color to that. So for example, I could grab a little zone here, and maybe we'll have these be blue, and I can just change those together as a group, and you can set up a whole bunch of different zones here in order to do that. So I can go over to our function keys here, maybe change those to green if I wanted to, and there you go. So pretty interesting strategy there. Then you have the effects mode here where you can do like a little twinkle twinkle star thing, or you can go over here and do a breathing mode where it'll just kind of rotate through a bunch of different colors that you've selected, or at least in this case just blue, but you have another one here that does do that, the color cycle, where you can kind of go through a bunch of different colors here and have it do that. And of course, you can do the color wave if you want to do that. And there's also, I believe, the key press mode too, where it'll light up colors based on what you're typing on there. So a lot of neat little LED features you can apply to that. The next option here is just to set what that key does for the disabling of the Windows key. So by default, when that key is pressed in, those two Windows keys will be disabled. You can then set up profiles on a per game basis so that different keys can be disabled when that game is loaded. But you have to go in here and actually pick the game out before you can even start. So you have to go and find it in your computer, and if you're using Steam, you got to dig through your Steam folder to find the executable there. They also have a really interesting feature here. This is a keyboard map that shows you where you're hitting the keys the most on as you're typing. So I can maybe start a new one here. I'm going to just hit the play button. So I'll just start typing out some keys here, and when I hit stop, it'll show me which keys I pushed the most and kind of where I was concentrating my fingers on. I know a lot of gamers who are trying to improve their game want to make sure their hands are in the right place, so you can do this heat map and really try to figure out what you're doing right or wrong, and it'll even light up the keys based on the keys that you hit the most, so you can make sure that you're improving your craft as you're going along here. All right, so I've got the companion app running on my phone now, so let's see what that's all about. So I'm in Rocket League right now. Let the game kind of play out here on my gaming laptop, and I have the app running on my iPhone. It's connected wirelessly. This also runs on Android. And what you can do here is pull down from the top to get access to the app, so you can control your media and some other things there. But I really like this PC stats option. I'm not sure if there's other applications that might do the same thing out there, but this is what you get here. So you can look at your CPU usage and temperature, as well as what the GPU is currently doing as well. So kind of a neat way to track your stats here without that stuff showing up on a game recording or something that you might be doing. Although it's sometimes hard to get at the menu up here, because at least on the iPhone, it kind of interferes with your tray at the top. So sometimes I'm pulling down the notification tray as opposed to actually getting to the app screen here. Now, if I had games that supported this Logitech second screen experience, I'd be able to load those little applets up as well on the phone. Most of the games that I own don't have that available, so it's a limited compatibility at this point. So I think the most useful thing, at least if you just own the keyboard, is this statistical stuff here. But I think if you own a gaming mouse, you can actually change some of the profiles and macro settings from the app as well, but it doesn't do all that much with this keyboard. So that is the Logitech G410 gaming keyboard, and I wish this cost a little bit less than it did, because it doesn't feel like a $130 product to me, especially given what else is out there. And the software is a bit limited too. So you saw you can do a lot with the lighting on the keys, but you really can't apply a profile to save those lighting settings and then do something different for maybe a different game or a different time of day or something. So the lighting settings kind of just live on their own. You can set profiles for the key disabling thing, but not for the lighting. And I know a lot of people like to have different lights for different games, and it doesn't look like right now you can do that on this keyboard. I'm sure it's a software thing that they could probably fix in a future update, but as of right now, the only profile you can set on a per game basis is what keys to disable, and you got to dig through all of your Steam settings to get to that exact game exe file in order to have that profile thing work. So they need to do a little bit of work on the software, and it's a shame that the build quality on this just feels so flimsy. But if you are looking for something lightweight with decent mechanical keys, it's worth considering. Just be very careful with it, because I do think it's going to be a little bit fragile. This is Lon.TV, and thanks for watching. This channel is brought to you by the generosity of my Patreon supporters. If you find the channel helpful, you too can contribute for as little as $1 a month. Visit Lon.TV/Patreon to learn more.